Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Willow Tate Kane stood in her living room in Port Charles's tranquil suburbs, her heart thumping like a drum in her chest, as the weight of political ambition and personal secrets collided every day. The morning light crept through the windows of the house she shared with Drew, forming lengthy shadows that appeared to reflect the gloom creeping into her life. Willow, a recently elected congresswoman, envisioned a future of power, influence, and perhaps penance for the mistakes of her past. However, on this particular Monday, June 22nd, those illusions were dashed with the appearance of an unexpected and frightening visitor. Willow had been getting ready to go to work, her thoughts racing with the responsibilities of her new position. Michael was scheduled to drop off the children later, and she had made arrangements for a caregiver. Life felt dangerously perched on the edge of normalcy, despite the undercurrents of anxiety caused by Drew's health and the never-ending scandals. She checked her reflection one more time, adjusting her professional clothes, when a harsh knock rang throughout the home. Her blood chilled as she opened the door. There stood Jen Sidwell, the enigmatic and vicious character who cast a long shadow over Port Charles. His presence was not coincidental, it was a deliberate invasion. "Sidwell," Willow murmured, barely above a whisper. She backed away reflexively, but he pressed forward, entering the house as if he owned it. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, examined the room with the accuracy of someone who had spent years navigating the dangerous seas of international intrigue and corporate warfare. "What are you doing here? You have to leave now." Sidwell's lips twisted into a smile, sending shivers down her spine. He locked the door behind him with deliberate calm, as if cementing their fates together. "I'm afraid that's not an option, Congresswoman. I need a place to hide out for a few days. And what better sanctuary than the home of a respected U.S. Congresswoman? The authorities would never think to look here." His tone was smooth, laced with the confidence of someone who had manipulated far more formidable opponents. Willow's thoughts raced. Sidwell was now a fugitive, wanted in connection with a number of projects, including his cold fusion experiment and the complicated circumstances surrounding his son Marco's death. She'd crossed paths with him previously, in ways that bonded her more than she'd like to acknowledge. Her role in Drew's current paralysis, the covert paralytic she provided under duress and opportunity, tied her to Sidwell's orbit in ways that may destroy everything if revealed. "This is insane. Drew is here. The kids will be coming. You can't just move in." He laughed quietly, devoid of genuine humor. "Oh, but I can. And I will. I've invested too many years in my work to let it slip away now. My partner can't reap the benefits alone, and I need answers about who really killed Marco. Sonny and Laura may have manipulated me into believing it was Pascal, but I know there's more." Sidwell moved deeper into the living room, his gaze flickering to the area where Drew rested, immobile but aware in his nightmare-like state. Willow's panic worsened. She groped for her phone, fingers quivering, and threatened to contact the cops. "I'll give you a head start. Just go. For your own good." Sidwell's expression stiffened. He crossed the gap between them in 2 steps, his voice lowering to a deadly whisper. "If you turn me in, Congresswoman, I will take you down with me. You are where you are because of me, your position, your leverage. It's all built on the foundations I helped lay. And don't forget what I know about you and Drew." He looked meaningfully at the paralyzed man, offering a chilling bargain. An endless supply of the paralytic that kept Drew locked in his body, a tool that could ensure Willow's control indefinitely in exchange for her cooperation. The air became dense with stress. Willow's mind turned back to the decisions that had brought her here. Willow Tate has experienced grief, betrayal, and the challenges of parenting. Her marriage to Michael had crumbled under the weight of secrets, and her friendship with Drew, once a source of stability, had devolved into something darker. Shooting Drew in desperation, and then drugging him to keep him silent were acts motivated by fear and ambition. Sidwell had been an ally in the shadows, offering resources and cover that were now about to become chains. Willow's willpower weakened as they talked in whispered, urgent tones. She couldn't risk being exposed, especially with her congressional seat on the line and her children caught in the crossfire. Sidwell, sensing success, began to settle down, casually scrutinizing the furniture as if he were planned a lengthy stay. Willow recognized the comparison with Valentine's extended incursion at Carly's. History in Port Charles had a terrible way of repeating itself. A knock on the door interrupted Willow's thoughts about her next desperate move. Chase. Her heart jumped into her throat. She sent Sidwell a warning stare, and he quietly retreated to another room, leaving her to recover herself. Willow opened the door with a fake smile and greeted Chase, who entered the living room oblivious of the fugitive hiding close. Chase appeared genuine, his detective instincts temporarily muted by personal concerns. He had arrived to give news that would further complicate Willow's day. "Willow, about that job offer as your chief of staff. I'm turning it down." He explained his choice quietly, citing a desire to return to the police force whenever his family duties allowed. Sitting for the detective's exam felt natural. He belonged in uniform, protecting the streets of Port Charles rather than navigating the political arena. Willow was surprised, concealing her inner agony with professional grace. Chase's reluctance was disappointing. She had relied on his commitment and expertise to keep her office stable in the face of impending storms. Unbeknownst to him, Sidwell listened from the shadows, a quiet witness to the conversation.
Willow closed the door and leaned against it, exhausted, as Chase left. Sidwell reappeared, his presence a continuous reminder of her captivity.
"See? Partners in this now."
Cooperation benefits us both. Meanwhile, at the Port Charles Police Department, another strand of the day's drama emerged. Lucy Coe, always the opportunist and ally in Brooklyn's plots, sat across from Detective Joe Fitzpatrick. She delivered a dramatic statement implicating Willow in the hit-and-run accident involving Jordan and Curtis. Lucy stated she saw Willow at the Quartermain residence that fateful night, upset and possibly preoccupied by her difficult relationship with Michael. The allegation that Willow, who had previously been accused of shooting her husband, fled the scene sowed seeds of suspicion and investigation. Joe questioned her timing. Why come forward months later? Lucy weaved a web of half-truths, claiming the connection had only lately clicked. As she left the station, the detective started looking into alibis, unaware that he was being used as part of Brooklyn's vengeance to get Willow out of Chase's orbit. Brooklyn Quartermain cuddled her baby Phoebe close before Chase paid Willow a visit. Their discourse centered on familial schisms, notably with Tracy. Chase exhibited willingness to grant grace, acknowledging Tracy's protectiveness, but his heart was still with law enforcement. Brooklyn's relief was evident as he confirmed declining the position. Her plan to frame Willow was taking shape, but Lucy's demand for pay loomed as a complication. In another section of Port Charles, Dante Falconeri and Lulu Spencer faced the mystery, Nathan, later revealed as Cassius, who was linked to Britt. He revealed critical information. Rocco and Britt were in the British Virgin Islands, specifically Tortola. The revelation elicited a mixture of relief and mistrust. Dante and Lulu demanded specifics, accusing him of helping Britt's kidnapping. Cassius vigorously defended his sister, emphasizing Rocco's willing departure and Britt's affection for the youngster despite her illness. After a heated debate, he agreed to provide the specific address in exchange for a pledge not to pursue Britt. Lulu and Dante felt the weight of their emotions. Their son's protection was important, yet the vow shackled their hands. In Port Charles, family ties were never straightforward. Forgiveness, betrayal, and redemption recurred indefinitely. Meanwhile, Trina Robinson confronted her parents, Portia and Curtis, with maturity beyond her years. She expressed a desire for distance following the baby shower. Their constant disagreements had occupied her life for far too long. Trina adored them, but she needed room to pursue her aspirations, which included the musical showcase. She promised to contact them when they were ready, leaving Portia and Curtis shocked but determined to make things better for their unborn child. At the Jerome Gallery, Ava Jerome bargained with Ethan, who accompanied her to Sunny's summons. Ava, understanding Sunny's desire for information about Sidwell, brokered a deal. Ethan would intervene in future arguments with Sunny over Avery. Their playful conversation hinted at darker undercurrents as Ava sauntered out, twisting strings in her trademark flair. Back at Willow's place, the tension persisted. Sidwell's warnings lingered in her head as she tried to balance sheltering a fugitive with maintaining her public image. Drew, confined inside his body, was a silent witness to the coercion. The paralytic's supply hovered between salvation and damnation. Willow weighed her options. Obedience would cost her everything, whereas rebellion would speed up the unraveling of her world. Sidwell, content in his temporary refuge, planned his next move against those who had wronged him, his cold fusion ambitions and need for vengeance driving his determination. The day progressed in Port Charles, a tapestry of intertwined lives where one secret threatened to destabilize many. Willow's legislative ambitions, once a road to respectability, have now drawn her into danger. Chase's decision upheld his integrity, but left Willow isolated. Brooklyn's strategy gained momentum, and Lucy's falsehoods added fuel. Dante and Lulu grew closer to their son. Trina established her independence, and Ava formed alliances. Willow sat alone for a spell as nightfall came, the weight of Sidwell's presence hanging in the air. "This arrangement doesn't have to be unpleasant," he had previously stated, his voice booming. Willow, however, had created her own cage. The possibility of discovery, the promise of more medicines to keep Drew under control, and the worry of losing her children and profession all weighed heavily. She wondered how long she could keep her balance on the knife's edge before it all came crashing down. In the larger story of General Hospital, this Monday's events highlighted the fragility of authority and the inevitability of the past. Sidwell's hideout at Willow's signaled the beginning of a new era of extortion and uncomfortable alliances. Willow was now profoundly compromised, whether she was a congresswoman or not. The town was teeming with undercurrents, investigations, family reunions, and personal reckonings, all pointing toward impending conflicts. Willow looked out the window, the sun sinking on a day that had upended her meticulously planned existence. Sidwell glided gently through her home, like a ghost, his threats hanging like poison. She had previously threatened him with prison, but now she faced her own metaphorical cell. Cooperation appeared to be the only option for survival, yet it chafed against her soul. Drew's eyes, if they could communicate anything, may have pled for freedom, but quiet prevailed. Port Charles never slept well, and this day was no exception. Stories intermingled from the police station to the Quartermains, the gallery to the hidden safe house that used to be a family home. Willow's mystery guest was only the beginning. The threats went beyond prison, affecting legacies, loves, and the very fabric of identities forged in fire. As night fell, the stage was set for more discoveries, betrayals, and possibly a glimpse of hope in the midst of disaster. But for the time being, the fugitive had the upper hand in Willow's house, and the congresswoman was obliged to play along. The complicated web continued to twist. Brooklyn's joy at the sowed seeds of suspicion regarding Willow would soon be met with potential backlash. Lucy's payment for silence gave an extra dimension of intrigue. Dante and Lulu's travel to Tortola loomed, filled with parental anxiety. Trina's boundaries were a lesson in self-preservation, while Ava's transactions demonstrated the transactional nature of alliances in their culture. Willow retreated to her thoughts, repeating Sidwell's remarks. His knowledge of her acts against Drew, the provision of paralytic as leverage, it was masterful exploitation. She had advanced from nurse to congresswoman via perseverance and questionable decisions. Those options circled back. Hiding Sidwell meant jeopardizing everything: her marriage, her political prospects, and her freedom. Turning him in led to mutual devastation. Sidwell's presence converted the room from refuge to cage in the quiet hours, when the house calmed. Willow considered telling someone, Nina, perhaps, or her mother, but the risks were too severe. The events of the episode had an outward ripple effect, guaranteeing drama in the coming days. Port Charles inhabitants dealt with love, sorrow, ambition, and vengeance on a daily basis, but this Monday's convergence of plots raised the stakes significantly. Drew's paralyzed figure served as a chilling reminder. Willow's shame mixed with necessity. Keeping him mute protected her secrets, but at what cost to her humanity? Sidwell's pledge of limitless supply enticed her worst desires. The possibility of exposing her legislative career as contaminated loomed great. As the day progressed through innumerable talks and hidden moments, one reality remained constant. No secret was ever truly buried at General Hospital. Willow's houseguest was a ticking time bomb, and the blast would change their lives. Chase's career loyalty kept him away from the political quagmire, a decision that could save him from the consequences. Brooklyn's framing plot created moral ambivalence in her protective instincts. The sun had fallen, yet the stories continued throughout the night. Sidwell plotted in the shadows, Willow grappled with her guilt, and Port Charles braced for the fallout. This was more than just another day. It was a watershed moment in an ongoing story of love, power, and peril. When Chase joined the picture, the risk of calamity climbed significantly. Chase is a naturally loyal person who has frequently rushed to defend those he cares about. However, his proclivity to act on emotion can blind him to hard truths. As the proceedings progressed, there was rising anxiety that Chase would uncover Sidwell's presence. Such a discovery could spark a showdown that neither Willow nor Sidwell wanted. Willow was concerned that Chase might misunderstand the scenario, while Sidwell seemed almost pleased by the prospect. For Sidwell, upheaval frequently creates opportunity. In other news, Dante continued his investigation into the unsolved mysteries that have plagued Port Charles. Determined to discern fact from fiction, he pursued avenues that others may have overlooked. His investigation put him on a collision course with knowledge that may change multiple relationships. Dante's tenacity has become one of his distinguishing characteristics. Even when faced with impediments, he refuses to drop a case. On this time, his tenacity propelled him deeper into a labyrinth of secrets. Lulu found herself torn between optimism and distrust. As more information became available, she struggled to determine whom she could trust. Uncertainty weighed heavily on her. Each talk appeared to generate more questions than answers. The emotional stakes were higher as family members were torn apart by competing commitments. Some believed that the truth will eventually become clear. Others feared that the truth would destroy everything. Meanwhile, Brooklyn faced her own troubles. Recent circumstances have compelled her to reassess numerous critical connections. Despite her efforts to radiate confidence, it became clear that she was harboring emotional wounds. The pressure on her personal life has not subsided. Instead, it continued to expand, leaving her unsure about what the future held. Simultaneously, discussions about employment opportunities and life-changing decisions added to the complexity. Several characters found themselves at a crossroads, unsure whether path would lead to happiness. One of the episode's main themes was trust. Characters were repeatedly forced to determine whether to believe the persons in front of them. Some chose faith. Others chose skepticism. Few people were spared the consequences of those decisions. Willow's predicament exemplified this idea perfectly. She wanted to believe that she could handle the turmoil Sidwell had brought into her home. She wanted to pretend she was still in control. However, every contact showed differently. Sidwell followed his own rules, and his presence turned her home into a potential war. Willow made an effort to set limits throughout the day. She reminded Sidwell that the relationship was only temporary and refused to participate in his ideas. Sidwell listened politely. Then he ignored almost everything she said. His behavior suggested a man used to getting his way. Whether through persuasion, trickery, or intimidation, he consistently finds ways to accomplish his objectives. This trait has made him one of the most unpredictable characters in Port Charles. Another significant development involved fears about the future. Several characters acknowledged that existing conflicts cannot last indefinitely. Secrets will eventually come to light. For some, that prospect represents hope. For others, it causes fear. Following her experience with Sidwell, the Congresswoman looked to fit within the second type. Although she refused to surrender right away, the warning definitely touched her. The possibility of legal penalties persisted in her mind long after the conversation was over. Perception is often used to determine political influence. When doubt enters the picture, even strong views can become vulnerable. Sidwell appeared to be completely aware of this reality and used it to his advantage. His strategy was quite straightforward. Instead of demanding fealty openly, he pushed the Congresswoman to consider the consequences of opposition. As a result, The debate resembled psychological warfare rather than negotiation. As dusk came, tensions in Port Charles continued to rise. Family disputes remained unaddressed. The investigations moved forward. Romantic partnerships faced new challenges. Political battles escalated. And at the core of it all was Sidwell, whose influence appeared to extend across practically every significant storyline. Sidwell's adaptability is what makes him extremely deadly. He rarely follows a single plan. If one strategy fails, he rapidly devises another. This versatility enables him to stay many steps ahead of opponents who underestimate him. Willow learned this lesson firsthand. Despite her protests, Sidwell remained a constant presence in her life. Every attempt to create distance seemed to draw her closer into his orbit. The more she refused, the more convoluted things grew. Willow's dissatisfaction, however, suggested a potential turning point. She may feel powerless right now, but history has proven that when people are tested, they typically become stronger. If Sidwell continues to underestimate her, he may finally discover that she is more resilient than he realizes. The episode also showed how linked Port Charles has become. Decisions made in one tale have far-reaching consequences for several others. A threat issued in a political office can have an impact on what happens at home. A secret discovered during an investigation might alter personal ties. Nothing happens in solitude. This connection provided a sense of movement throughout the hour. Every scene contributed to a bigger image, one in which numerous individuals looked to be heading for unavoidable conflict. By the end, viewers were left with a few serious questions. How long will Sidwell be at Willow's house? Will Chase discover the truth behind the arrangement? Can the Congresswoman resist Sidwell's push, or will terror drive her to comply? What revelations await Dante as his research progresses? And, perhaps most crucially, who will ultimately bear the cost of the increasing web of lies around Port Charles? The solutions remain elusive, but one thing is certain. The balance of power is shifting. Characters who were once confident are losing their footing, while others are gaining influence in unexpected ways. Sidwell's decision to hide at Willow's house may appear to be a short solution, but the ramifications could be long-term. His presence has already shifted the dynamic between various people, allowing for conflict, revelation, and treachery. Willow is facing an increasingly difficult challenge. She must protect herself while negotiating a predicament she did not seek. Every decision entails dangers, and each interaction may reveal new vulnerabilities. The Congresswoman's situation is similarly alarming. Faced with the prospect of incarceration and political ruin, she must decide whether to stay up or yield to pressure. Neither approach ensures safety. With investigations ongoing, relationships fracturing, and Sidwell expanding his influence, Port Charles appears to be heading for another dramatic chapter. The day's events may have started with an unexpected surprise, but they finished with a growing sense that much larger fights are on the horizon. For now, the town is caught between truth and lie, loyalty and betrayal, fear and courage. Nobody can afford to feel fully safe while Sidwell is hiding in the shadows, or in Willow's guest room.